You're tuned into TobiTalks, episode 16. Don't sleep on the path to becoming a certified registered nurse anesthetist. Now, you guys, all my life I had to fight to figure out what a CRNA does. And I am so excited to tell y'all I finally know. Okay, let me stop playing around. But seriously, I literally had no clue what a nurse anesthetist does. So I used to thought like, man, yes, I heard they make big bank, but what do they really do? Are they assisting doctors in the OR? What is it? I mean, are they waking the patient up, putting them to sleep, or just taking vitals? I don't know. But my guest today, Angie, also known as Fuchsia Angie, is going to be sharing with us what a nurse anesthetist does. And she is dropping the gems, y'all. I'm talking about from history all the way to the pay. And you don't want to miss out on some advice she really gives us as millennials. But you know what? I'm already talking too much. Let's go ahead and hop in this conversation. So, girl, let's really hop into this. Tell me, how did you pick this field, nursing? Like, what led you to your journey, and where are you now?
So nursing, I got to start initially when I was in high school. So my father knew a nurse practitioner who worked with Kaiser Permanente. And so he introduced me early on. So I knew I wanted to be an advanced nurse provider. Maybe nurse practitioner, I wasn't quite sure, but I knew nursing was where I wanted to go. So when I graduated high school in 2009, I went to Georgia State and went straight into getting my BSN. And I knew at that point I wanted to do pediatrics. And my husband, who I met in nursing school, who's also a registered nurse anesthetist, he was like, I think you should look into going into the ICU because I think you should go into becoming a CRNA also. And that was what his path was. And at the time, I didn't know what a CRNA was. And so I listened and I went and shadowed in the ICU, ended up doing an externship and ended up taking a new graduate nurse position in the ICU. But it wasn't until actually I had the opportunity to shadow a CRNA doing a transplant procedure that I was like, I didn't even know nurses could provide anesthesia. And it was absolutely amazing. So at that point, I went ahead and started doing my research and started taking it seriously about being able to get my experience and also take the requirements to be able to be eligible for application for CRNA school.
Wow. I as well don't know what a CRNA does. I think I didn't even know nurses could even do CRNA. I just always heard the credentialing, but I thought, man, you got to be like mad experience in the ICU, like at least 10 years and then go back and then like almost go through what doctors went through. I really don't know. So how soon, like after, you got on the floor and worked as a nurse, did you go into going to CRNA school?
So I'm going to start a little bit and kind of explain also what CRNA is and what we are. So CRNA stands for Certified Registered Nurse Anesthetist. For those who don't know, we are actually the first providers to specialize in anesthesia going back to 150 years ago. That started out with actual Dr. Mayo with Mayo Clinic. So that's just a little bit of history. We're one of the most trusted professions of nursing, as you already are familiar with. But also, too, it just shows you how long we've been providing anesthesia. And so we are advanced nurse providers. So you have your minimum of your BSN before you can be eligible for school. Mm-hmm. And then you have to work at minimum 1 year in the intensive care unit. Most schools do require a GRE score. And then they will generally require shadowing of a CRNA. The average CRNA school applicant at the time of admission normally has about 3 years of ICU experience. Mm. I myself had 2 years when I started school, but I applied to CRNA school at my 1 year mark.
Oh, wow. First of all, I want to say thank you for dropping the knowledge real quick. She said, y'all about to know my history. Okay. We just ain't nobody's giving anesthesia. We've been doing this for the minute. Girl, drop them gems so quick.
Yes.
That is amazing. So I really didn't know that. That's amazing as the profession in itself. And then you applied a year after graduating from your BSN or after a year of being on the floor?
So I finished my BS in 2013. After 1 year of being an ICU nurse in the PICU, I applied to CRNA school. I took my CCR. Had just completed my CCR at the time of my first interview. So when I applied at the time, I didn't even have my eligible hours for my CCRN. So when I did get my interview, I presented an updated resume and said, I have since completed my CCRN. So it was a lot in a short amount of time when you consider that most ICU orientations are 3 months. I'm hearing now most are about 4 months. So if you consider GRE preparation, getting comfortable in the ICU, and then preparing for CRNA school interviews, which can vary in the different types of interview styles depending on the school, it's a lot in a year. And then you're really trying to take on the most complicated patients and really learn a lot in a short amount of time to be able to really show yourself, but also show school that you are more than competent and willing to be able to be prepared to take on the rigor of going to anesthesia school.
Wow. That is real dope. That's intense. You're right. I mean, I'm just thinking about like, wow, you're already doing an internship for 3 to 4 months, then you're trying to study for GRE, but you were on it. And I love how you're being so transparent about it because, like I said, those stereotypes or those old views of you have to be at the bedside for such a long period of time. Coming back to that, did you feel like when you were going through CRNA school, did you feel like, man, I really needed to be at the bedside longer? Or did you feel pretty confident in what you've already experienced enough to go into CRNA school and actually start in that field?
That's actually a really good question. I have 2 points to that. So one, generally most CRNA schools, they have, I would say, a hierarchy of the type of ICU experience they desire. So adult ICU / adult cardiac ICU being like number one, pediatrics would be number two, and then neonatal being the least desired, right? So I did PICU. So I felt, am I disadvantaged as an applicant going into CRNA school, not having done any adult ICU experience? And so most schools do take PICU. I would say probably 90% take adult pediatric ICU, but a very small percentage take neonatal because it's very different and very specialized. That often cannot be generalized to the overall population. And so I felt like I might not be adequate, but then when I was preparing, I was like, oh, I do see a lot more, and I'm well prepared to go into CRNA school, even with my short amount of time being an ICU nurse. Now, I still feel like the traditional thought with most nursing instructors, because let's be honest, most people who go into nursing education have often been a nurse at the bedside at minimum 5 to 15 years. Yeah. So they still think that most advanced nurse providers, not just CRNAs, but even nurse practitioners or even certified midwives, should probably be a nurse and practicing their specialty at least 5 years, because that's the standard, or there must be an unspoken standard that I'm not aware of. But the new modern age millennial who's in nursing, they don't need to be in their profession that long. If you are taking on the critical patients, you're desiring to learn, you're going to continue education, you're really taking responsibility for your craft and your specialty and your responsibility as a professional, then if you feel like you are prepared, then who is someone else to tell you based on their own expectation? So if the COA, which is the accrediting body for nurse anesthesia education in the United States, says all you need is a year minimum, I don't care about anybody else's opinion. Okay. So I feel like you should go ahead and apply.
Ooh, I know that's right. Oh, girl, yes. I'm so glad that we're on the same page, because sometimes it's like so hard to like vocalize that to some of the older generations that kind of make you feel less than because you're not as experienced as them. And that's true. The new generation, the millennials, the way we do things, we truly understand and love and desire what we do, but we don't want anyone putting a time stamp on when we can make our achievements or when we can, branch out and do more that we know we're capable of. So were you able to work during your program? Like, was it so intense? Like, kind of give me a little bit of background of what your program kind of put you through and the process of being an anesthesiologist in a little summary, and also were you able to work doing that?
So that's actually probably number one question I get. So there's a point to address. So it's all dependent on the school. And I'm going to actually talk a little bit about how I'm seeing nursing anesthesia schools change and even how they're trying to address the financial strain on going to CRNA school, which tends to be, I feel like, people's number one reason why they don't choose the CRNA profession, even though they desire it first. So I work PRN in CRNA school. So there are two types of programs. You have a front-loaded program where you do your didactic anywhere from 12 to 16 months. And then the last 16 months of your program is clinicals. And then you have an integrated program where you generally do, I think the first normally 8 weeks are straight didactic. And then you have a proportion of so many clinical hours and so many didactic hours. And as you progress in the program, you decrease your didactic hours and increase in clinical where you're doing just straight clinical. Now, if you think about traditional nursing school, we do an integrated program. I personally am a proponent of going to a front-loaded program. When you think about surgeons learn how to cut, and then they actually learn how to practice cutting. So I think that concept to me is a little bit easier, and it also is a lot easier to be in a front-loaded program and work PRN. And the reason why is while you're doing classroom, you can generally schedule a PRN shift if the requirement is functional for your ability to learn and stay on top of it. So, for example, when I worked in the NICU, I'm not NICU trained. I was a PICU trained nurse, and we would float to the NICU. But me being at a children's hospital, we had a surgical NICU, which is not the same as being at a NICU that's in a birthing hospital. The acuity is a lot different. And so you have micro preemies at the age of 23, 24 weeks, if they're viable, who need immediate surgical, immediate surgery along with medical management. So that was not really what I would see. If they came to CHOA, they often were stabilized and then came in for surgery, or they got sick there, and then you would have more surgical involvement. So it's a little different. So when I would come in, while I'm trying to learn everything about anesthesia, I'm also actually reading a NICU book, so I can really be comfortable being in the NICU, because it was so different from what I saw at my NICU. So I would say if you're going to do PRN in school, do a specialty that you actually know, not do something new. But it's always up to the school's discretion if you're going to work PRN. I had to get special permission from my program director to work PRN. Some schools have a max hours you can work. And if your grades slip, then you can't work. I would say everyone's ability also to work PRN in school varies, and it varies with your ability to comprehend information in time and level of intelligence. Not that people aren't, but it's more so an issue of people know where they're at and what their needs are with learning information. And so it's difficult to balance trying to work and family life and then going to school when you're already putting in 40 to 60 hours of study time. It's a lot.
Would you compare it to nursing school? Like by or I wouldn't say compare it, but was the straining of having to study and balance life, was it equivalent to the same kind of experience you had in nursing school, or was just on steroids?
I think it's reminiscent. I don't think they're even remotely similar, because also too, the responsibility is so different. A lot of people ask me, well, do you feel like ICU prepared you? Well, I think what ICU does to prepare a nurse anesthetist is ability to think in stressful situations, be comfortable with vasoactive drips, be comfortable with sedation, be comfortable with ventilator, but that's in a very modified manner. And then you're taking on the responsibility of being the one to not just diagnose, but initiate and plan and choose your intervention and your anesthetic. That's not the same.
Wow. As
a nurse, we notify, we recognize changes based on our assessment, and we make recommendations, and that's not the same thing. We're doing all of that, and we're making the choices on how to respond and what to do.
Wow. That's a really, I guess, like you said, that's two completely different things. So you're relearning, or not even relearning, you're being taught a whole nother way of providing care, completely different from like how we're trained in nursing school. Wow. So what challenges did you face in the program? Like, I know working was one where you had to get permission and stuff, but in the program itself, what other challenges did you face that kind of made it, not as easy or smooth sailing? Not any program is smooth sailing, but what challenges did you face that kind of made it a little difficult, but you made it through?
I think going back to the millennial, being young, particularly being a young Black woman, I'm 27. So when I started CRNA school, I was 25. So when I come into the operating room and I have a circulator nurse who talks to me as if I'm not a nurse, like, I'm your colleague. I don't know who you're talking to. But when I communicate with any adult, I communicate with respect, and I demand the same level of respect. And so that would be something that I would find interesting when you would speak with other professionals, especially nursing professionals, and they're still got nurses eat their young concept. And I feel like with a lot of older nurses, as a young nurse going back to get her advanced degree, you would have those experiences. And so I really drive it home when I even like have students, like you really patience and being understanding, but also to like really being confident and sticking up for yourself. Because I'm sometimes discouraged by the experiences of dealing with people who seek almost to discourage you in how they interact with you going back to school, being so young. And I just think it's disappointing. And I think in the nursing profession that we really need to open our hearts and minds to the new concept of nurses going back who are younger, who feel like they're ready, but also taking on the desire of wanting to help encourage and grow them in their skill set. Because while I do recognize that, yes, I do not have as much experience as you, my experience is still valuable.
Exactly.
And so shifting the idea from lack of experience to, okay, well, how is she valuable to us as a team member? And that, I feel like once that mindset changes with I feel like the older group of nurses, to me, it will make it less hostile. Even that, and that includes just bedside nursing too, altogether. I saw that when I was a new grad in the ICU.
You are absolutely right. I think that's a struggle that a lot of millennials face. And that eating your young concept, period, that's bullying. I don't care where it's coming from, what angle, lateral, horizontally, whatever. It's just bullying. But I think it's just that intimidation, or I can't speak for the older generation. I'm not sure what it is, but it's almost, it doesn't feel good, of course, but it makes you feel as if like, wow, I'm looking up to you, thinking you would be so supportive of me, you know, wanting to go back to school or wanting to learn, but instead you're chewing me down because I haven't been, or I haven't done what you've done for the long period of time. You know what I mean? And that, to me, that concept really needs like some reorganization, because I feel like both sides can gain on each other. You know, like we're coming in with, you know, technology and advancements and evidence-based practices and all these things that we love to share and grow on. And you're coming and, you know, and you're meeting an older seasoned nurse with her experience on a different kind of patient she's met and the different kind of changes. Like, I feel like hand in hand, they both can help each other out. But when you have one that's just like, you know, beating you down and making you feel like crap because you're young, I mean, to me, that's just ridiculous. But it's the truth. And I'm glad that you highlight that. And I'm, you know, of course, I'm sorry that you went through that, like every nurse does. But I love that you highlighted that you have to stand up for yourself and demand that respect, no matter what my age is.
And, you know, it's so funny when you were saying that, it made me think about it even more, because I feel like now as millennials, we're facing the concept of how do I get comfortable with really being the person who's in charge, and I'm much younger. I'm basically the leader of the situation, and how am I to basically articulate what I would need and what I want you to do, because now I'm in a higher position of power, but I have less experience and I have less age on you. So that dynamic, and I feel like trying to be comfortable with that concept, because I'm the youngest person all the time in the room now. My surgeon is obviously older than me, but he's the captain and I was the co-captain. And if I need anything, you know, I have to communicate with my nurses in the room. And so, and my scrub techs, anybody that's in the room, we're all a team. At the end of the day, we're here for the patient. And so that was something I felt like I always would try to reconcile, is how do I communicate what I need, or how do I be direct when it's necessary? If I feel like I need to confront about something without coming off almost, I don't know, I feel like I would second guess myself in not really knowing how to be confrontational when it was necessary. Yeah. Because I would feel like, oh, well, how dare she say something? You know, she hasn't been doing this that long. And so I remember I met a CRNA in school, and he was like, well, yeah, you're going to be the youngest person in the room. You know what you know. And a wise CRNA always knows when to ask for help. And so I just always remember that when I'm communicating or when I need something and I feel like I need to, I don't know, I guess more better represent myself, or be, I can't even say be more confident regarding the leadership, but just it's confrontational and it might be uncomfortable, but not feeling like I should not speak what I need to because there's someone who's older or has more experience, and that dynamic might be awkward. That makes sense.
No, it does. Girl, it makes a lot of sense because when you think about it, even in nursing school, or I'm not sure about other fields, but I know specifically in nursing school, that wasn't something that we were trained on or being prepared on, because it felt like nursing school only trained you to be a nurse, and then you're going to be at the bedside for however long. And then from there, you'll somehow gain that confidence because you've been at the bedside for so long. They're not equipping, to me, my perspective, I don't feel like they're equipping the generation that are coming in, like us and the generations after us, to be true leaders now. It's like once you gain your experience, or once you're at the bedside for such a long time, then you become a leader, because that's what's going to make you stand out, because you have that length of time as an experienced nurse, and not more as how to be a leader, how to be direct, how to stand up. Because remember, as a nurse, a lot of times we're dealing with just the interaction from the provider. And that in itself is like a conflict sometimes, when you feel like, oh, because he has a higher degree than you, he speaks to, or not he or she will speak to a nurse a certain way. And, you know, all that communication issues that goes on between a nurse and a doctor. But I don't really feel like they prepare us for that leadership role. Like you said, like, knowing how to be confident and stand up and say what you have to say, especially when it's to someone who's been there longer, who may feel like, who are you to tell me I've been in this role longer than you? And I went through the same kind of experience too when I moved from the bedside and went to a supervisory role. And I was having to work with, in partnership with other nurses who were way older than me. And they would literally like, who are you? And what company are you coming from that hires people like you? And that was going on the fact that I was a woman, I was Black, and I was young. So why would they hire someone like you? You know, as if like I didn't have worth to give. But what I learned through that process was, I don't need to tell you who I am. I just need to show you. And when my work showed like, wow, this girl knows what she's doing. This girl really is about patient care. This girl really is about, you know, being empowering for nurses and being a leader, you know, and I felt like that was the way I leveled up. You know, like I couldn't really do that, you know, confrontational back and forth thing. It's like I learned to demand respect, but then I let my work speak for itself. So I don't know, is that something that you kind of felt like you feel that kind of way in being a CRNA? Like you felt like maybe the way you gave your patient care, the way you were so firm and you knew what you were doing kind of helped build that respect from, you know, the older seasoned nurses or seasoned professions?
I definitely do. I think that really, I've always felt that I don't think talking shows how well you do. Mm-hmm. I was always taught that a great provider shows how good they are actually in time of crisis. And so I always let my skill set as a student, and even now as a practicing provider, be that. And so if I feel like someone making a suggestion and I disagree with that, then I need to override them, I feel confident enough now that you've seen me before, you've watched me, you need to trust me as you have before in the situation. And so that's kind of how I deal with feeling I need to be confrontational with people, and knowing that they have a track record with me, but if they don't, being able to articulate too why I disagree and what I think we should do, and kind of go forward and hope that in us choosing to disagree, how we can make a decision together that's best for the patient. Because sometimes it's a difference of understanding, difference of opinion, and often too, and people not knowing what you do. From, you know, you have different, as a student, you know, coming into different clinical sites, they don't know where you're at, what you do. So you're trying to figure out where the student is in their clinical set, how much assistance or non-assistance they need. Also too, with the type of culture of that anesthesia group, and or the educator's preference, because every CRNA has their own preferences versus safety issues. And then you come in and you're essentially disrupting that dynamic, and then you're trying to create your own anesthetic plan that you would do on top of learning. And so I think that as students, as young CRNAs in the profession, I feel like it's always wise to be humble and look and listen. But instead of arguing with words, let your skill set show itself. And often it allows opportunity for questions. And two, also, I learned when I was in school, if a CRNA doesn't like something or they get upset about something, it was often because something has happened in the past. So my doomed response would be, So what happened before for you to have this type of reaction? Because often it really wouldn't be safety. It's just a preference or an experience that was not a negative experience. And from that moment forward, I'd be like, okay, well, I won't do this with you, but I understand why you don't like this per se, but I still think this is a great option, and I would say that. And so towards the end of my student learning, I would be very comfortable with communicating, well, this is what I like to do and this is why, and if you don't like it, that's, I understand, and this is what I would do going forward. And even now, when I work in an inpatient care team model where I work with an anesthesiologist, and so I have some anesthesiologists who don't like certain type of anesthetic plans, and so I'll say, well, this is what I would do in the situation, and then we'll discuss, and I'll say, okay, maybe not, maybe so, and sometimes, my plan will be the one that's chosen, sometimes it won't be, but either way, I still learn a lot, and I don't feel less valuable, even though I'm not the more experienced provider in the team.
That's so good. And that's so important. That is so important. So I'm glad that you really, really dug deep and kind of highlighted that. And it's always good to know where that person's coming from. And I think for me, that was where my experience kind of changed as well as a nurse, because I don't think certain seasoned nurses know that they're actually planting seeds that aren't going to be really good for new nurses coming in. And that was whenever you talk about a new doctor coming in, they're doing their residency, and you're kind of you've already been programmed and trained that they don't know anything, and you got to double check them because the new doctors are so dumb and the nurses know all the experience and stuff. And I'm getting this from seasoned nurses. So I'm coming in with that concept too, we're so much better than these resident doctors and blah, 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 blah. But then, when I decided not to take on the opinions and the past experience from other nurses and started actually talking and kind of interacting with the residents that are coming in, because they're also millennials like me too. And, it made the communication so much different. People make mistakes. They're in the training phase. That's what they're here for, and it kind of bridged that communication instead of being like, oh my God, this doctor's so dumb. Let me call the attending. Let me do this and this. I actually went to the doctor hey, you're about to give some lactose drips and some lactose medication to this 15-year-old, and it's for, you ordered for a newborn, you want me to change that, right? It's a basic conversation that you can have and not make it feel because he's a resident and you're a nurse and it's a power struggle. There shouldn't be a power struggle based on your experience or your level. It should really be a team effort, because we are human. We do make mistakes, and then we do take on emotions or past experience and present it to everyone or every case like it's the same, and it's not. So I'm really glad that you said, let me see why you think this way, or what happened before that, you don't want to do it this route that I'm suggesting. I think that's really, really, really good advice. And what I really want to ask, let's just say I'm a high school student and I have no idea what a CRNA is. Could you kind of dumb it down for me a little bit? What do you do? What are your processes? Can you give me a patient example, or, make it as plain and layman's terms and not, no medical terminology. But if you were going to talk to me as a high school student who's probably going to be excited to go into the field of nursing and want to pursue a higher up degree, how would you explain CRNA to me?
So I would say that a CRNA is an advanced practice nurse. So you have to go back to school after you've already gotten your bachelor's degree, and you specialize in anesthesia, where you put people to sleep for surgery. So, and there's multiple types of anesthesia. What we essentially do is take care of the patient all the way from the pre-anesthesia phase all the way to where patients go home, and making sure that they don't have any complications from us giving them anesthesia. And that can include anywhere from patients having what you might see when women are pregnant, epidurals for labor pain, or just sedation for things like colonoscopies. You can see a little bit of everything, all types of work environments, from surgery centers to endoscopy suites to even clinics. You see a little bit of everything. And then you also see, we have multiple types of specialties, from pediatrics, obstetrics, certain types of clinics, even like cancer clinics, you can see. So if you want to specialize, you can. There's a pain management fellowship for nurse anesthetists that is accredited by the COA. So you can definitely do a lot of different things, and you don't have to just do one type, or you can do multiple types if you want to keep it interesting.
Nice, girl. I hope you're speaking for high school students at their schools and stuff, because you played that out really, really good. That gave me a really good overview. I was low key trying to dumb it down for me because, girl, I still didn't. I was like, what do y'all do? Okay, so now I get it. Thank you so much. But my next question, because, of course, as a millennial, we still like to live our lives and live our best life, enjoy our families, travel. What is your work-life balance as a CRNA?
So it varies. I'll speak a little bit about different CRNAs that I know, their schedules and mine. So, for example, I work at a level 1 trauma center. So to me, it was really important to not do a lot of call. So most level 1 trauma centers, you do a lot of call. My husband used to work at a different level 1 trauma center where he did, I think, like 3 or 4 days of call a month. But we lived within the call radius, so he could do call from home. I don't live within the 30-minute radius where I work at. So for me to do call, I would actually have to either stay in-house on call room, or I would have to get a hotel. So I only have like a weekend requirement for call a year, which is amazing.
Wow.
And then I work a rotating schedule of 3 to 4 days a week. And I don't do weekends. So I can work I usually work anywhere from 10 to 14 or 16 hour days. And then I have some days where I get off before 12 o'clock, which is great. But it's great for me because I have a much better work-life balance. What's also too, a lot of people don't realize is that surgery is elective. 90% of your surgeries are elective. So generally surgery starts at about 7 a.m. and most places aim to be closed by 3. So most anesthesia providers, anesthesiologists, and nurse anesthetists alike tend to work 7 to 3. That's just because that's just how surgery centers work. And so they seek to decrease their operating room staff and operating rooms by that time. So I didn't want that. I never worked a 9 to 5. I didn't want to start now. I don't have kids. So that type of schedule did not appeal to me. Mm-hmm. A lot of my colleagues who do have kids, they love that schedule and that's great for them, but that's just not my thing. I like the option of working late shifts. And if I want to pick up overtime, I can, but I have flexibility of working at 8 to 12 to 6 hours. It doesn't really matter. But like my husband works 2 days a week at a hospital. And then other 2 to 3 days a week, he does freelance anesthesia where he's an independent contractor and he goes in to work at either dentist office, hospitals, urology clinics, GI clinics, and he basically is a fill-in anesthesia provider for their normal full-time staff who may be out on vacation or sick.
Wow, that is amazing. I'm so glad that you shared that because I'm like, hold up, you can do 7 to 3 in the clinic, and then you can do that. You can free. It's like even in that profession itself is very, very broad. Because like you said, now you young, you can do your schedule how you want to, but then when you get a family and you want to have something more, I guess, consistent, then you can also switch it up and do 7 to 3 or work in the selective surgeries and stuff. So I think that's like pretty awesome. That's really, you got a good deal, huh? Okay.
Girl, it's good. You can even do 24 hours if you want. Like some people do 24-hour shifts. So like I know one of my older colleagues, when her child was in the NICU, she did a 24 and a 12 so she could be with her son.
Wow. That makes sense.
So depending on your institution, you can do a lot of different schedules.
So let's talk about pay because, that's all we ever hear is, oh, anesthesia, they balling out of control. They living their best life. And, you ain't got to tell me all the digits, but comparing to when you were a bedside nurse working PICU to now, you're a CRNA and you have your awesome work-life balance. What was the pay change, the pay raise, give us a little, get a little something.
So the national average salary for incoming CRNAs in the United States is about $150,000. So the average, I feel like the nurse average salary, I feel like it varies because in Atlanta, where there's it's just very, I would say it's very chocolate. There's a lot of chocolate nurses in Atlanta. So there's a lot of men who I know multiple men who were bedside nurses who worked overtime, worked night weekends, because they worked all the extra differentials.
Yeah.
And they were making 6 figures as a bedside nurse.
Yeah.
My husband was one of those. So before he went to CRNA school, his friends were like, dude, why are you going back to CRNA school? You already make 6 figures. He was like, yeah, but I'm working for these 6 figures. I'm not. It's a little different. So if you were to base, let's say, if the nurse who's not working any, probably nights, weekends, any overtime, probably, let's say $50,000, you're going to triple your income essentially.
Yeah, that's exactly. And I'm glad that you highlight that, because I think people get nursing misconstrued. They think, oh, you're a nurse, so you must be, balling out of control. But what you fail to realize is that to be able to have that max of an income, I have to work those hours, like 12 hours, doing 3 to 4 to 5 shifts a week to be able to do that. And I think that was also the cool thing about nursing too, is very flexible. Because if I want to go out of the country this week, let me just work these 3 shifts and I'm good, but that's not consistent. You really got to put in a lot of work, and it starts to, give out on your body and your energy. And, do you really want to work this hard to be able to make this kind of income? So I like how you gave that example of like what your husband was doing before, but granted, he's now working like a normal nurse shift, working 2 to 3 a week. And he's doing that as a CRNA. And on top of that, he's also contractual. So say if he didn't want to work anymore, he just worked by some contracts and still, be able to bring in that kind of income. So I like that you highlighted that. So can you tell me, like, what was one of the biggest highlights for you as a CRNA?
It's interesting you said that, because I think it probably occurred when I was my senior year in CRNA school. And I went to an Atlanta clinical site, and I knew of this CRNA. Her name is Kim Kimball, from Facebook on the Black Nurses Rock, but also Black CRNAs Facebook group. And I got to meet her in person on my first day at that hospital site, and she was amazing. She's in her early 30s, and she's a cardiac nurse anesthetist there. And she was intelligent and bright and assertive. And I had not seen a young Black CRNA since I had been on my CRNA journey. So she was the first person.
Wow.
And also the embodiment of what I wanted to be like. I'm young, I'm Black, and I'm strong. And I was like, so when I met her, I was like, oh my God, like, you are what I want to be like. Like, and I told her that, and she just laughed. I was like, no, I have met so many amazing women who have been doing this for 20, 30 years. And I love that they are so passionate about it. But I can identify with you because we're at a very similar point in our lives. And I was like, you don't know how much it means to me to be able to see someone like you who's aggressive and like in their learning. Like she's doing her doctorate, her DNP right now. She'll graduate in December of this year with it. And I was just like, wait, how long have you been doing being a CRNA before you went back into your cardiac anesthesia? And she was like, girl, a year. I found out after a year of working as a CRNA, I went back and got trained to do cardiac. And I was like, oh my God. Like, I just was so impressed. And I was like, it did a lot for me. I didn't realize how much it meant now as I even talk to other people. Because I'm like, it means a lot to see someone who's in a similar demographic as you. Because like I said, you just don't see as many young people. And so I wish I had met her sooner. And she's like I'm actually like a mentor to me now, but she's also one of my very close friends now.
That is so awesome. Like, for real, I didn't even know that we had a Black Nurses Rock page. So now I'm going to find out about that, but girl, you're just giving all kinds of knowledge. Okay, y'all check out the Black Nurses Rock on Facebook. But I love that you said that, because you don't understand how important it is to see someone who looks like you, who's in the same like age bracket as you, who is out there saving lives and doing it. You know what I mean? And it encourages us who are probably in that same pursuit to go that same way. Because if we don't have the seasoned nurses encouraging us and we kind of feel beat up there, we want to see someone who's who's in that path as us, you know what I mean? So it's very, very important that for me, I feel like it's really big for me to help mentor other nurses that are even in nursing school or trying to, find their career path in nursing, because we are in this together, and I know it's hard by yourself. And I felt that way, going into leadership. I was like, man, I don't have anyone that I could truly give advice on. Like, I haven't seen a woman, an African-American woman, young in this kind of role, dealing with this kind of animosity or this kind of disrespect. What do I do? Who do I go to ask for advice for this? I kind of have to figure it out on my own. And now that I figured it out on my own, there's no way that I can neglect another sister coming up or another nurse coming up into this position who has no idea how to deal with this kind of issues, or who has no idea how to make her mark or speak up for herself. I feel like I have to, help in any way possible, because I don't want you to struggle. Just because I did does not mean I want that for you. You know what I mean? So I'm glad that you were able to find a mentor like that. That's freaking awesome. So what advice would you give to anyone, especially us millennials, who are trying to get into the career path of a CRNA? Like, what advice would you give them? What kind of encouragement would you like to share with them?
So one, your experiences don't count you out. So I started #myCRNA journey on my Instagram page for a couple of reasons, because I get it. Not everyone was a model college student. People live their best life, and sometimes their grades suffer as a result of living their best life, right? It doesn't mean that you can't go to CRNA school. What it means is that you may have to pay more to retake some classes. Mm-hmm. You may need to go ahead and switch jobs so you can get that ICU job that'll make you eligible to apply to CRNA school. That means you might have to retake that GRE more than once. That's okay. There are other people out here who have done it too, but you have to be honest with yourself too. If you need to do that, you can't just go I'm a big believer of, you have to steward your time. I'm all about having faith and praying, but you got to steward your time and your responsibility. Okay. And so you have to still do the work. It's not, I didn't snap my fingers and just get here. So if you know that, you might need to do things differently because you're not the traditional student, quote unquote, that's fine. But put in the work, do the research. If you want to do nursing, and even if you're not sure you want to go back to nursing up to an advanced practice degree, do not neglect your grade. Because if you decide to go back to school later, you don't have to stress about retaking courses because your grades are inadequate to be even considered for CRNA school. They're not going to even look at you with less than 3.0. You have a C in your courses, they're going to ask you to retake them for most places or say what happened, and they still won't actually let you into the school. And it's not a matter of me, it's just a matter of that's just what the standard is across the board. So most people, what's recommended by most CRNA schools is if you have a C in any of your pathology, your chemistry and or your pharmacology courses, to take a graduate level course, get an A in it, and to show that you can do the work and do the program. Because you have to keep in mind that while you might be this great person, you have a great story, that's cool and all, but if you can't do the work, you're taking a spot from a student who can. And you need to be able to demonstrate that to them.
This is true.
Taking chances is great, but they're still school. It's still a business.
So my question to you, because I like the way you stated that, and it seems like the core classes that you kind of mentioned were the same core classes that you kind of need to, also do well in to even apply to nursing school. Does the classes that you just mentioned, does that also imply with nursing school? Like with the classes that you took in your nursing school, would that also impact what they would look at, or would they look at that kind of differently? Because you know how in nursing school you can get a C and still pass but you can't retake that, you can only retake the ones that you, your entry level courses into the program. So
that's actually a great question. Yes and yes. So in a CRNA school, you're going to take advanced patho, you're going to take advanced pharm, you're going to take, you're going to do chemistry. So if you get C's in those courses, those are anesthesia is very heavy in those. There's no way to say, well, I was going through life, and I understand that. It gives, when you interview and you explain, this is why I got this, see, this is going on. If you get an interview with those grades, that gives a better whole picture to your situation. Still doesn't negate the fact that we don't know if you can do the work. You see what I'm saying? And so I think that's just the reality of the situation. And so they have a lot of nursing schools have a non-degree seeking option where you can take advanced pharm and advanced patho at a graduate level. So my mentor, Kim Kimball, her grades weren't that high applying to CRNA school. So she took advanced pharm and advanced patho as a non-degree seeking student at a graduate level when she applied to CRNA school.
Oh,
and she got in.
Okay.
So for people who have gotten C's in those courses, I always recommend retaking those and taking them at the graduate level as a non-degree seeking student.
Thank you. I hope that helps you guys out there. They're like, dang, my grades ain't there. At least you have because it's true. Like, I know when I was in nursing school, I went through some ish. I got back in the program with a 2.1 the second time because the first time was just a lot going on and stuff. So yes, life happens, but there's also ways to still go for your dreams. So I like that you even, mentioned that, taking the, non-degree course and these advanced practice can also help get you into the field that you're hoping to get into. So thank you for sharing that. And I just want to thank you so much for your time today. Like, I feel like my audience are just so excited to hear you and hear like what it's like to be a millennial, to be a CRNA, and then the things that you went through. And just thank you for sharing your transparency. I appreciate you so, so much.
No, thank you for having me. This was a really, really, really great talk. I'm really encouraged by this conversation, and I'm really glad that we really kind of dug in more about the millennial issue because I don't think it's talked about enough. It's an issue I feel like that affects not just CRNAs, but also nurse practitioners and midwives and just new grad nurses altogether.
I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. There were so many gems dropped. And if you want to reach me or hit me up, feel free to contact me through my email at TobiTalks@TobiTalks.com. Again, that's TobiTalks@TobiTalks.com. Feel free to follow me on Instagram or slide me a DM. That's at Tobi.Talks. Again, IG, Tobi.Talks. I also got Twitter, like everybody else. So feel free to hit me up. And my Twitter is ThisIsTobiTalks. I look forward to talking to you guys very soon. And remember, I'm rooting for you. So go out there and be great. Till next time, talk to you later.